Cyndi, and this is June's Inspiration from the Greats. And this month we're doing Paul Cezanne. And I'm just going to get this started. It's nighttime, so as you can see, my lighting is all messed up here because I have my ceiling fan light on, and you can see the shadows here. And my camera's not set up right. So I'm not going to, I'm going to get started with this. I'm just going to put like an underpainting on here, just sort of a background to get some color on here. And then tomorrow, I'll really start working on it. But let's see, Paul Cezanne, he was born in 1839, died in 1906. And he painted mostly in oils, and he was considered a post-impressionist. He was not, let's wet this a little bit. It wasn't the most pleasant person to be around. He was, according to people around him, you know, he was pretty moody, grouchy, and they say that this stems from his father. His father was quite the jerk, mean to his wife, mean to his kids, very stingy, and just not a very nice person. And he supported Cezanne well into adulthood, so Paul Cezanne pretty much had to do whatever his father said because his father was supporting him. And of course, like all of the parents back then that we've talked about so far, I think, his father, of course, did not want him to be an artist, but he was interested in art from a very young age, but it was discouraged in his household, and so his early paintings were pretty depressing. They were full of like just sort of kind of deformed bodies and pictures of rape and murder. And I mean, he was, I'm sure that a psychologist could have had a field day with him. But he did that for numerous years. Well, several years, and that's why, you know, people didn't really like him, because his stuff was kind of a drag to look at. But he developed friendships with some of the impressionists of the time, Manet and Degas, and I forget who else right offhand, Monet, I think. He wasn't really like them because he was always, you know, moody and grouchy. Wasn't really a partier like a lot of the other guys were. But he did learn from them. He did have one friend from when he was a little boy named Zola, and he has a lot of fond memories from Zola. They used to go swimming or bathing, as they called it. I don't know, I guess in a river or a lake or a creek or something. And those were some of his fondest memories in life. He wasn't really into women or men. He just wasn't really into people very much, but he did like Zola. Now they eventually had a falling out, but for a long time Zola was very supportive of encouraging of Cezanne's art. Okay, there. I've put some paint on the canvas. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted to get some blue on here to go under my sky and some green to go under my mountains. I'm going to do, what is it called? It's called Mont Victoire. I don't know. I have a terrible French accent. It's sort of like Mount Victoria or something. He painted that a lot. I think he painted like 100 of them, and they're all different. And it's funny because they mention that as he painted these later in life, and this particular mountain, the shape of it actually changed. And they say the older he got, the more and more it started resembling a breast. He was painting boob mountains. No, he was, sorry about that. Yeah, it just started looking like a breast. And he was very, he had a real problem with women's bodies. Although he did paint them, he painted naked bodies, but they were usually always like really weird. He didn't paint like beautiful bodies. Sometimes you couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman. But we'll get into that. I'll tell you more about that tomorrow. I watched a documentary. On him a little while ago. I got a little too much green at the top, but that doesn't really matter because this is all going to be covered up. I'm going to do this in the Impressionist style where you're just tons and tons of little, dabs of paint and lots of color. And I really should stop because I'm messing this up now. But as I said, it doesn't matter because it's all going to be covered up anyway. So we have that on here so it'll dry. And we'll start actually painting tomorrow. And we'll have some better lighting. And I'll have my camera set up right. So I'll be back. Okay, I am trying something different with this painting. I do not have usually I put my canvas or paper or whatever flat on the table. But I'm going to try to do this a little bit different. I put it in this little easel. And let's see, I need it to be a little more towards me. I'm going to try it. If it doesn't work, I'll stop and go flat on the table. But as you can see, or maybe you can't see because it's really light, I sketched in just a little bit of the mountains, the mountain and hills and a couple trees. And I'm just going to mess around and start trying to paint impressionistically. Let's see what we can do. I forgot to put some, he's considered post-impressionist because, let's see, we need some white paint here. Because he was at the time of the Impressionists, but he sort of changed it up a little bit. Whoa, that's a lot of white paint. And started to get, I want to say more abstract, but not really, because it's kind of abstract, but more real than the Impressionists, if that makes any sense. This is what I've taken from the things that I've read and the documentaries that I've watched. Because after him, Picasso and, let's see, who else? Somebody else. But Picasso sort of grabbed part of Cezanne's style and took it a little bit further, you know, and then started doing sort of the cubist type things. Picasso did all of the like people with the weird faces, sideways and backwards and upside down and all of that. But, you know, Cezanne, like all of the other ones, was never popular while he was alive. The year after he died, they showed a bunch of his paintings, and he became a success. I think that was 1907. He died in 1906. I think that's what it was. But he was really put down most of the time because, like I mentioned last night when I did the little videoed a little bit last night, he started out with like really, really strange paintings. A lot of just ugliness and violence. He had a really unhappy childhood. His father was a real taskmaster. His father was, I guess, a banker, and really, really into money. And expected his son to do the same thing. In fact, insisted that his son go to law school, which didn't last for a very long time because Cezanne hated law school, which is not very surprising since he was more of an artistic type person. But his father was just, you know, a real poop. He wasn't. And it sort of made Cezanne not really a fan of people in general. They say Cezanne was kind of a poop too. As my husband would say, he thought who he was. Meaning, you know, he just sort of had no tolerance. Didn't have any tolerance for other people. Thought he was better than everyone else. And just wasn't very pleasant to be around. So that didn't help with his ability to promote his paintings. In fact, he would, back in the Impressionist time, like in the late 1800s, there's this place in Paris called the Salon, and that's where they all showed their paintings, and he would always try to get some of his paintings shown in the Salon, but he would always like send them in late. He wouldn't follow any rules. He'd write nasty letters to the people. He'd send his painting accompanied by some, you know, really nasty letter telling the people what jerks they were. So he just wasn't, he didn't make himself very likable. And he had, when he was 30, he met a woman, Hortense. She was a seamstress, and everybody was very surprised because he had never had a relationship with a woman. In fact, he really seemed to have problems with women in general. So they were very surprised. He started seeing her, moved in with her. He had to keep it a secret from his father because his father was supporting him at the time, sending him money. And he knew that if he told his father, it's quite possible that he would be cut off. So he kept her a secret, and She lived with him, and they eventually had a son, also named Paul. But his relationship with his, oh, and they got married too. His relationship with his wife was very weird. They rarely ever, you know, during their lives, rarely ever lived together. He didn't really like Paris. So a lot of times, or most of the time, he lived in a small town, I guess in the suburbs, but she would live in Paris with the son. I saw an interview with Cezanne's grandchildren. And they say that, I mean, they remember their grandmother, Hortense, but they said that they don't really remember that. They don't remember knowing that Hortense and Paul even hung out together or knew each other. They didn't really make a connection that, you know, he was the grandfather, she was the grandmother. If that makes any sense. As you can see, I'm just, you know, dabbing colors on here to give the impression of a mountain. And once I get a lot of color on here, then I'll go back over, I think, with a smaller brush and try to develop some interest with smaller brush strokes. I think that maybe the Impressionists started with a smaller brush, and they did all of it with a smaller brush. But that would take me forever if I did that. Actually, I should probably switch brushes to a little bit smaller and more of a square brush. Because with this round one, my brush strokes aren't as noticeable. And their brush strokes, that's a hard word to say, were very noticeable. I'm looking at a picture while I'm doing this. And my computer, it's not a very clear picture. So the colors that I'm using are probably not that similar to the colors that he used. But I'm not trying to copy it. I'm being inspired by it, right? Being inspired by it. So, I think I mentioned he had this friend from like elementary school. I don't know if that's what it was called back then, elementary school, but he had this friend when he was really young. And his friend was, I think, is Emile Zola. Anyway, he ended up being a very famous writer, very successful. And he was very supportive of Cezanne. Check and see if my camera's still on. Very supportive and always trying to get him to distance himself from his father. But, and at one time, I think Cezanne even considered being a writer. But this guy became like super famous, very wealthy. But then he wrote a book. And the book was about a wannabe painter that ended up committing suicide. And it was very obvious that he used Cezanne. I keep saying Cezanne. Cezanne as his, you know, sort of his inspiration for the book. But anyway, Cezanne got really mad about it. And that was the end of their relationship. He wrote him a letter. Thanks for sending me a copy. See ya. And never spoke to him again. So he could definitely cut off people in a heartbeat. But he didn't like, you know, that guy had become very successful and very wealthy and lived in a big, beautiful house. And Cezanne wasn't really into that either. He wasn't into the Parisian city thing. He was sort of like, well, they called him in one documentary, they referred to him as like a country bumpkin. He liked the simple life more, but he never wanted to do anything but paint. And finally, his father died. When his father died, Cezanne received a big inheritance, which enabled him to support himself for the rest of his life, just painting. That's what he did. He lived in some little town and just painted for the rest of his life. And that's when he got into doing these mountain paintings. This was the view from his house. He did hundreds of these mountain. This is called Mont. Let's see, how do they say it? Mont Saint Victoire. I don't know. I have a hard time. Pronouncing things, but anyway, his mountain things and his landscapes have become very popular, and they're worth millions and millions of dollars. I think, I can't remember. At one time, he had like the most expensive painting ever sold. I think that's not the case now, but I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. But he also did a lot of paintings with buildings and you know, landscapes. Was showing the mountain in the background, but then all little houses, little village in the front. And he was very into that. And he said that the only thing that you have to be able to paint, you just need to know 3 shapes. A circle, a cone, and a line. That's all you need to be able to do. I don't know about that, but I'll take his word for it. I'll take his word for it. Let's see. Let's do something with this tree and lighten it up a little bit. But he would work on paintings for, you know, weeks, months, years. And his paintings are so different. He went through so many different periods because, you know, he went through this thing because he really loved the old masters the ones that painted like the voluptuous naked women. And even though he did not like to use live models because he didn't like to be around women, and he certainly didn't like to be around naked women, and he actually didn't like to be touched either. That was a thing. He wouldn't even let his child, his son Paul, touch him. He hated to be touched. He had all kinds of little quirky things going on. And I would say that probably most of them were brought on by his terrible relationship with his father. You know, they don't say much in any of the documentaries or the books about his mother. I didn't think about that until just now. But his wife, who didn't live with him very much, but every once in a while he would call on her to come out to his house and sit for him. He painted a lot of paintings of Hortense, and they're really weird because they're all just her sitting in a chair with no expression. Her mouth is always like just a line. There's no emotion, or you just can't see. You know how sometimes when painters paint someone that they love, you can sort of, you know, see something in the painting. But no, not in his. She just sits there with like a little teacup or something, and her mouth is a line. I don't know what the deal is with that, but I mean, she must have understood him because, you know, she didn't live with him. She had a kid with him. And up until his father died, you know, they didn't have any money. So it's not like, you know, she was with him because she was being supported and she could live in Paris and just hang out and, you know, spend lots of money. So I don't know. They had some kind of understanding, I guess. She felt something for him. Let's see. What color? I don't even know what color this is. It's a little orangey. Some little oranges out here in this mountain. Man, this is going to be quick. It's impressionist, but they just flew through these paintings, and now, obviously, they put a lot more into it than this. Obviously. I've been doing, you know, last month was Monet, right? Well, I knew right after I did that one water lily painting, I was addicted. I painted several of them. Right now I'm doing a really large one, well, 3 feet by 3 feet. I'm doing it with acrylics, but I've used watercolor, I've used acrylic ink, and acrylic paint to do the water lilies. I just love doing them. Love it. I don't know who I'm doing next month. I guess I should check. let's see, what else did they say about Cezanne? Oh, he's considered like the father of modern art because he took the, he sort of took everybody from the Impressionist period to the post-Impressionist period and into the Cubism and Fauvism and all the different isms that came after that. So, yeah, it's just such a bummer that all these people, they spent their whole lives, like majorly into making this fantastic art, and they never knew, well, maybe they know, but they never knew while they were alive that, that they were successful and that people did love their art, and they did achieve what they set out to do. You just never know. I guess people now, they get sort of instant, not instant, but it's easier to become more well-known now because of the social media, and you can get people's attention a lot easier. You don't have to necessarily have a gallery fall in love with you. There are different ways to go about a career as an artist. These colors, I think, are really pretty. I put about 1 million colors out on my palette here. And I'm using mostly Liquitex, System 3, and that inexpensive paint that they have at Hobby Lobby, Master's Touch. It's not bad. It's not bad paint at all. But I always put way, way too much out on the palette. I don't know why I do that. It's like people that put too much food on their plates. You go to one of those food buffets, you feel you're so afraid you won't get enough. So you put a ton of food on your plate. Oh, it's crazy. Crazy. Okay. Sort of got, now I want to do this grass down here, which is going to be a lot lighter. Let's see. Some white down here. Some white and some yellow. And some of this green. Yeah, and I guess part of this Impressionist painting is you're supposed to make your little, which I have not been doing, but make your little dabs like this. Like, okay, well, these I sort of did. I made these are sort of sideways. Now, maybe the ones down here I'll have all like up and down, because I read something about that. them doing different sections in different directions. They're little slabs of color. So that's what I will do. This is the first time I've used this easel since I bought it. In fact, I don't know why I had the need to, felt the need to have a little easel, and this is too small. I have a big easel that my father made for me. It's really beautiful, but it's too big to for something like this. Okay, I'm going to go across the bottom here, and then I'm going to take a little break and think about what I'm going to do, and load this video that I've made so far onto my computer, because my phone, since I video on my phone, it fills up really fast and it'll just cut out in the middle, so I need to get rid of it. Okay, there we go. There we go. All right, I'll be back. Okay, we're in trouble now. It has started raining, everything's gotten dark. I had to turn on lights, which is making this really weird, but I'm gonna suffer through it. Suffer through it and try to finish this up. See what we can do. See what we can do. In the 1890s, sometime in the 1890s, an art dealer did become aware of Cezanne's work. He couldn't find him. He had to track down Hortense in Paris, and she put him in touch with Cezanne, and he had a show, 150 painting show, and the other artists, the young artists at the time, they really, they liked it. The people that just came to see the show, they weren't very into his work at all. In fact, people said some really nasty things. One person said, "These are so ugly, they would make a pregnant woman miscarriage." That seems like a pretty odd thing to say, but I don't know. Anyway, you know, when he got into something, he would stick with it for a while, because he did the still lifes for quite a while, doing apples, lemons, peaches, different fruit. And evidently at that time, people did not use color to express dimension, and he did that. So people were, the other artists were very interested in that and started doing it. Although his still lifes were kind of, what color is this? I can't even tell what color this is. They were different because his perspective wasn't always right. Because he would walk around when he was painting, so he would look at something from one side and look at it from another side and paint it from different sides. So a lot of times the perspective was weird. Like a table leg would be like up in the air, not, you know, just not the way it should be. But that's what made it interesting later. Okay, so I'm just playing around with this smaller brush now and trying to add some colors in and make it so we can see the strokes a little bit more, maybe. Just trying to make it a little more interesting. Can you hear the thunder? Here comes the thunder. I don't like this dark part right here in the middle. I need to do something about that. Maybe lighten it up with some yellow. But one day in 1906, Cezanne went outside to paint. Most of his painting at that time was plein air painting. He would paint the landscapes, sit outside and paint what he saw. But he went outside and it was raining and he got soaked and caught a cold. And ended up, you know, dying from, doesn't say pneumonia, but I would assume pneumonia. And like I said earlier, he became very popular shortly after that. You know, I wonder if, because when I saw that documentary with his grandchildren in it, I was thinking, I wonder if his family ended up with all of his paintings. Since he really didn't sell that many paintings. I wonder if they ended up making a lot of money off the paintings. You know, maybe not his wife, but, you know, the grandchildren later on. Now, these grandchildren look to be in their, in the documentary, look to be in their 80s. Definitely looked older. Yeah, I may end up cutting this a little shorter than I had planned, but you get the gist of it. It's hard to paint with the this light up here. I get weird reflections, and I'm sure it's not coming out that great on the camera either. Ooh, I meant to. I was taking a little break. I meant to look up who we're doing next month, but I forgot to. Let's see. Oh, I know what I have to do. I know what I have to do. I'm going to put some tree trunks in here. That's what I want to do. Let's see. I'll take some of this Payne's Gray here. It's not too dried up. Yeah, and there's sort of like a scraggly tree trunk. Coming up like that, and this one, let's make it a little wider. There we go. Let's see, and I think we can also see a little bits of tree trunks under here. And under here. And then sort of under here, like this. Sort of went like this. I'm not looking at the picture now. Just doing this like from memory, or, you know, just because I want tree trunks there. Let's see, maybe we should make this a little more of a rounded tree here. It's not like that in the painting, but let's do it. Let's just do it for the heck of it. Get a little light coming in on that side, maybe. There we go. Good. Too much Payne's Gray on that side. So that kind of ruined my light. There we go. There we go. And let's see, maybe we can fix up this, find a brush here and fix up this purple. Let's fix up this purple and blue a little bit. There we go. Yeah, this is a little too gray up here. I'm trying to think, what else did I hear? About Cezanne. He didn't like people. He didn't like people to touch him. Oh, no, that's about it. That's about all I remember about him. Let's see, put a little. You know, the Payne's Gray, the golden Payne's Gray, which is not what I'm using here, is beautiful. It's much different than any of the other Payne's Grays. If you want to invest in a nice Payne's Gray, get the golden. It's sort of a bluish, blackish, grayish, and none of the other companies really make a similar Payne's Gray. I've tried them all because, you know, obviously the golden is pricey. So I can't always afford to invest in that. Hang on one second, my husband's calling me. Okay, I think that's all we're gonna do. There is my painting inspired by Paul Cezanne, and next month we're going to do Edgar Degas. And I don't know how I'm going to do that, but of course I say that every month. And that's it. There we go. It's pretty colorful. It does not look like the one that I was painting from. I'll put that up on the video so you can see what I was trying to do something similar to. Anyway, that's it. Inspiration from the greats.